Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the No Name Podcast. My name is Kirk Jackson. Thank you so much for clicking in. What an intelligent design our brains and our bodies are. And with an intelligent design, as we all know, there has to be an intelligent designer. Everyone that listens to that song and has ever watched one episode of The Lone Ranger immediately can close their eyes and picture Clayton Moore riding his horse Silver down chasing bad guys with Tano and Scout close behind. Isn't it amazing? God's creation is limitless. It knows no bounds. Hello and welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to the No Name Podcast. Thank you so much for clicking in today. Don't forget, hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you have a question or something that you'd like to hear me talk about. If you have an argument that you disagree with me on something, please shoot me an email at nonamepodcast1@gmail.com. nonamepodcast1@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm broadcasting to you live from my concrete bunker because, as you all know, the end of the world happened yesterday. Oh, it's another end of the world apocalypse. It happened yesterday. I avoided it because I'm safe in the concrete bunker up in Winnetoba, Canada, hiding from all of the demons and the black hole that was created by an organization called Cern. There was a lot of hype and hoopla about it, and that happened, I guess this is the 25th. It was supposed to happen on the 23rd, and now apparently, if there's anybody out there to even listen to this, you're being chased by demons, you've been taken a hold of by demons, and it's the end of the world. They created a portal to Saturn, and that's where the demons are all hiding out in the rings of Saturn, and now the demons came here, and it has to do with some sort of a particle generator smasher together sort of I don't want to get all technical on you, but it's called the, hold on, Large Hadron Collider. As a matter of fact, I think I saw one of those at a yard sale a couple of days ago over the weekend. But an LHC, that would be Large Hadron Collider. That thing created a black hole or some sort of a portal to Saturn, and now all of a sudden demons are flying around everywhere. They came in through the black hole or the portal or whatever, and now they're taking a hold of your bodies even as we speak. Can you feel that? That's the demons. That's the demons that all of these noted theologians were warning you about coming to get you. Oh. No. No, none. Not even one. What about John Hagee? Not even John Hagee, really. Well, I guess there weren't any noted theologians that talked about it, just a bunch of stuffed shirts on YouTube that apparently they're so noted, so well known, they didn't have to give their name in any of the YouTube videos. That's how prominent they are. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe you haven't heard of this Cern jazz, but a lot of people did, and a lot of people were preparing for the end of the world to commence on the 23rd, just a couple of days ago. And as we all know, it didn't happen. Most of us, hopefully, those who read our Bibles, we're not planning on the end of the world occurring on the 23rd, just like we weren't planning on the end of the world occurring on, what was it, March 25th or whatever of 2016, like Nostradamus predicted. Folks, we have to read our Bibles. We have to read the verse that says, no man knows the day or the hour. That's Jesus' words, straight from Matthew 24:36. It's not possible for us to predict rightly when the world is going to end. It's not in the cards. Jesus didn't want it that way, and for good reason. If we knew when the end of the world was going to occur, we would live in a sin state until that moment happened. Just like we don't know when we're going to die. That's why our birth certificates did not come with expiration dates. God does not want us to know things that are above our human capabilities to know, because he knew that we as selfish beings would take advantage of that. And we're supposed to always be ready for his return. And anytime you hear somebody talking about how he's going to come back at 10:03 on February 30th, you just need to either close the book, turn the channel, maybe find another preacher to listen to, because that's simply not true. It's not right, and it's not healthy. You know, we're put on this earth for a reason, and the more we think about leaving it, the happier we may be, but we have a job to do here on earth. We have to be preaching to other people on a constant basis. We have to be sharing the good news of the gospel with other people on a constant basis. And when you hear these yaks on YouTube talking about how Jesus is coming back on this date at this time for this reason, and this is how we know because there are seven's the number of perfection, and there are 7 moon cycles until this happens, and the black hole is going to be 7.777 times this and that and the other thing. It's just a bunch of nonsense and hooey that we need to just clear from our minds. You hear people, another thing that you hear people talk about when they are talking about Jesus' return, which, by the way, is going to happen. Jesus is going to come back. But we're not supposed to know when. And when you hear people talking about that, a lot of times they run to Matthew 24. It's a chapter filled with prophecy and prophetical teachings straight from Jesus himself. But you hear them take these 6 verses out of context and then dispense with the rest of the prophetical passages in the Bible. And they're important verses that we all need to remember and keep very close in our minds and be thinking about constantly. And ye shall hear of wars, rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. These all are the beginning of sorrows, and then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake, Jesus speaking. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and deceive many, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. And with North Korea's saber rattling, and with 2 hurricanes, and with an earthquake in Mexico, and with just over the weekend now a church shooting, I can say confidently that a lot of these things have already taken place. But that doesn't mean that Jesus is going to come back tomorrow or Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever. You can't put a time on it. I firmly believe that Jesus said all of these things not to say this is when I'm coming back, but simply, hey, I'm coming back. Kim Jong-un, little rocket man, is threatening to send a nuke into LA or Guam or wherever. Jesus is coming back. There's another earthquake bounding towards the East Coast. Jesus is coming back. People in Africa are dying and have been dying because lack of food, ergo famine, for years, decades and decades and decades. Hey, Jesus is coming back. The most important verse out of those 6 verses is the last one. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. We have to remember when we hear these things, when we hear about famines, floods, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, wars and rumors of wars, we have to keep enduring. And more than ever, we have to remember that the end is near. It's near. And, frankly, it has been near for a long time. We have to remember, keep preaching. Keep the oil in our lamps and keep our eyes turned towards heaven. Because as John Hagee once said, look up, pack up, shape up. Because we are going up someday very, very, very soon. We'll be back right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We're back on the No Name Podcast. Kirk Jackson here, speaking to you from my bunker after the end of the world commenced on the 23rd of September. Thankfully, I was in my bunker already and escaped that. We talked in the first half of this show about some of the lies that Christians were being told by non-believers or just maybe even Christians who are new to the faith or are still infants in the faith. They're still drinking the milk. They haven't moved on to the meat yet. They don't know their Bibles as well as they should. I'm going to talk to you now in the second half of the program about another lie that a lot of people are being told, and that is the lie about hell. There are many different facets of this lie. A lot of atheists believe, obviously, that there is no hell, but it's astonishing to me. You read the studies that George Barna and his group put out, who poll Christians and poll different spiritual aspects of America, and the belief in heaven versus the belief in hell is very, very unproportional. You would think that if 50% of Americans believe in heaven, 50% would also believe in hell, but that's not the case. As a matter of fact, it's almost 1/3 of the people that believe in heaven believe in hell. So if 99% of Christians believe in heaven, there are only about 33% of, air quote, Christians believe in hell. And the problem with that is hell is not a nice place. Hell is not the Wizard of Oz where everything is beautiful and there are poppies in the field and a horse of a different color comes to meet you at the gate of Oz and everything is just spectacular. No, there aren't unicorns, there aren't butterflies, there aren't flowers in hell. It's a very, very, very real place, and it's a very, very nasty place, to put it mildly. And that's why so many people don't believe in it, my opinion. Freud said, it's an illusion to reject something simply because we wish it not, or we wish not to believe in it. In other words, just because something is nasty, a lot of people do not believe in the nasty things, even though it could be factual, it could be real, and we know that heaven is. It's not a place that Jesus talked about outside of Jerusalem where people buried their trash and burnt their trash. It's not the pool of blood outside of the temple where the animal blood after sacrifices ran down. It's smelly, and that's where the worms are. No, it's a very, very, very real place where souls, not only souls of people who are lost will go, but also their spiritual bodies. It's going to be a place of actual physical and mental anguish, torment. And if nothing else, that should fuel our desire and our want to warn people of it. If somebody had cancer, you had the cure to it, you wouldn't sit on your hands and go, nah, I don't want to offend them. The treatment is kind of painful. Maybe we should just let them die, let the cancer kill them, instead of, maybe we'd hurt their feelings by acting like we knew everything or we knew better than them, and the treatment is kind of painful. So let's let them die to the cancer. No, we would warn them about that. There's no doubt. One of the biggest lies about hell is a loving God wouldn't let Satan torture us in hell for all eternity. That doesn't sound like the God of Psalms, the loving kindness, the grace, the mercy. God wouldn't do that. He wouldn't send any of his own creation to hell. The problem with that is, first of all, God created hell, just like he created the earth, just like he created heaven, just like he created you and me. Satan will be there as a guest, not a torturer. God created hell first and foremost for Satan and the third of the angels that left heaven and followed Satan. That's what hell was originally created for. God's desire was not to send, and it's still not, to send any of his creation, any of his human creation to hell. It was meant for the demons. Unfortunately, after the fall, we know how that changed. We knew that sin came into this world and that we were all born with the sin nature. And we also know that God gave us a free will. He lets us choose the path that we want to take, whether it's the broad path that leads to destruction and hell, or whether it's the straight path and the narrow one that leads to repentance, faith, and heaven. Hell shows God's holiness and perfection. A judge would not let someone who is perpetrated such an atrocity. Maybe he was a serial killer or a serial rapist, or maybe he just stole a whole bunch of stuff, grand theft auto. That judge would not let that person walk free without any consequences. Otherwise, he would not be a righteous and perfect judge. And just like that judge, God will not let us walk away without paying for our punishment. And that's why Jesus came and he died on that cross, so he would pay our punishment for us. And he can do that because he is perfect, without spot, without blemish. And unless we trust in that, unless we follow Jesus, unless we turn and repent and ask Jesus to pay our punishment for us as he did on the cross, all we really have to do is say, okay, Jesus, I have made mistakes. I have sinned against you and against God the Father and against the Holy Spirit, and it grieves you such. I am truly sorry for that. Please pay my punishment for me. And in return, because you have been so good to me, since you died for me, now I want to live for you. I want to hold up to the principles and the scruples that you've put forth in your word. Hell gives us what we want. J.P. Moreland, a noted theologian, spectacular, brilliant man, said that hell is a way for God to give us what we want. If we go through this life sinning, rebelling against God our entire lives, God is finally going to say, you haven't had anything to do with me on your earthly life here. So it's only obvious that you don't want to have anything to do with me for the rest of eternity, so you can go to hell. You are allowed, I'm allowing you to go to hell and be away from me for all eternity. And that will be such a larger punishment and so much more painful than the flames and the eating of flesh and the worms that eat your flesh and the darkness that overpowers and consumes you. The separation from God will be so much more painful than any of that. That will feel like a 3-day full-on massage compared to being separated from God, from looking across just like the rich man did in hell and seeing Lazarus in heaven looking across the abyss, and that rich man knowing he was by himself, without God, without his friends, without any hope of realizing that things are going to get better, and knowing that he grieved his Creator, the one who gave him so much and did so much for him, even in his fallen state on earth. He turned his back on all of that, and he's rotting in hell now by himself, and he's grieved his Creator. As I said earlier, God is perfect, God is holy. Jonathan Edwards said it's a most unreasonable thing to suppose that there should be no future punishment, to suppose that God, who made man a rational creature, will never punish him for his sins and never make any difference between the good and the bad. How unjust would that be for God to allow good and bad people, Christians and non-Christians, followers of him who have what's the past tense of strive, who have strived on this earth, who have been persecuted for Jesus' name's sake, to wind up in heaven alongside with the people who were selfish, who were arrogant, who betrayed God? They're both going to go to heaven. No, that's not the earmark of a perfect and just God. We're not programmed robots. God gave us a free will. He allows us to do what we please when we please. And that realization should fuel our desire to share the good news of the gospel with people that we come across, so they don't end up like the rich man in hell, but they'll join us and Lazarus in heaven, praising God for all of eternity. That's something so important, something that every Christian must bear in mind. We need to put away the lies that we're told about hell, and we need to realize that it's a very, very, very real place, and that the only thing you need to do to avoid that is allow Jesus to take your punishment for him, and then live according to the guidelines, the principles, the scruples, and the standards that he has put forth in his word. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for clicking in today and listening. This is Kirk Jackson. We'll be back next week with another podcast. Thank you.